Welcome, everybody, to Firehouse Talks with Jersey Rick, igniting leadership excellence. I'm Rick, and this is my co-host, Emily.
Hi,
How you doing today, Emily?
doing pretty good. I'm excited to dive right into our episode today.
Yes, here it is. This is the 27th of February when this episode is being released, and we have completed now just a little over a year of doing our podcast. So
That's
I'm
crazy.
happy. I'm happy about that. And looking at the statistics, we have people from certainly the Rocky Mountain region that
hmm
are listening into the podcast, and we have people from the East Coast as well, and even some folks from Europe that are listening in. So, hey, thank you, folks, for listening. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
What do we do here? Well, in this podcast, Firehouse Talks with Jersey Rick, igniting leadership excellence. We talk about leadership. We talk about everything related to leadership, and we do it from a biblical worldview. Emily and I do not support or promote the failed woke philosophy. So, what are we doing today, Emily?
Yeah, so today's episode is from the second chapter of your book, The Furnace of Leadership Development, which is available on Amazon, ebook, hard copy, or Audible. And we are going to be going on the title of the chapter, Trust and Credibility.
Yes, trust and credibility. So, we're taking today's title out of there, and it's called a triad of strength.
So, what exactly is a triad?
Well, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a triad as a union or group of three.
Mm.
And in that chapter there, chapter 2 that I wrote, I refer to the triad of strength as integrity, credibility, and trust.
Mm. So, in the previous episode of 27, we addressed the quality of integrity, and we told the story of the former employee of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Yvonne, known as Missy Woods, and her criminal misconduct that spanned a period of 29 years. So, if you haven't listened back to that episode, we recommend going back to listening
Yeah, if
to
I
it.
may interrupt you really quick. Yeah, please go back and listen to that episode. That's one of our shorter ones, runs approximately 20 minutes, not counting the intro and outro music. And I wanted to emphasize one of the words that Emily used, former employee. So go ahead.
Under investigation.
Currently under investigation.
So, integrity is a firm adherence to a code of moral and or ethical values.
Mhm.
Where there is no integrity, there will not be credibility or trust.
Yeah,
It kind of goes hand in hand together.
Yep, they do. They go hand in hand. And folks, want to say something here about my co-host Emily, my one of my daughters. We have two daughters. Emily also has a business called Emily's Delights, and Emily makes cake pops and periodically some cupcakes as well, but her specialty is
Not advertised.
not that part's not advertised except for what I just said right here.
Mm,
The
cake
the cake
pops.
the cake pops are great, and I've seen Emily build this business. She started it when she was in high school,
Mhm.
and she has maintained a high state of integrity. She believes in customer service. However, I will say that Emily doesn't get pushed around either, but Emily maintains her integrity in her business. And it's absolutely important. And like Emily just said, wait, where there's no integrity, there's not going to be any credibility or trust.
Yeah.
Now, the author Stephen Covey, many of you are familiar with him and his book, The Seven Habits. Covey said, trust is the glue of life.
Hmm.
It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. So
Yeah.
trust. I spent the bulk of my adult life in government, whether it was, two branches of the military, the Air Force, and then the Marine Corps, and then working in municipal government. And I think it was Ronald Reagan said about the most notorious 9 words in history. I'm from the government, trust me. Or I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. So,
No way.
yeah, no way. So there's very, very little trust in the government. There's very little trust in and certainly in the mainstream news media.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal, Emily.
Yeah. I really like that quote because, yeah, without trust, there really is,
Hmm.
what do you have? There's nothing,
Right.
you know? So the question to ask is, can a man or a woman have integrity but still not have credibility and trust? I think that is a very interesting question. And I know you're gonna answer it soon, but it's just I was thinking about that question as I
Yeah,
was like
absolutely.
asking it, and it's like, yeah, I think it's valid because trust is not
Mm,
given, it's earned. So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, well,
you're right. Trust
get
is
your
earned.
answer.
And so my answer to that question is yes, a man or a woman can have integrity. It can have that firm adherence to that code of moral values, but they can lack credibility, leading to a lack of trust in certain areas. So let's take a look at Joe Schmuckatelli. Joe Schmuckatelli, the recruit firefighter, goes through the entire hiring process, does well, has a good work record, comes recommended, is physically fit, enters the academy as a recruit firefighter who has integrity, but as a firefighter who's never had any experience in firefighting, there's no credibility as a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no trust at that point that Joe Schmuckatelli is capable of performing as a firefighter. So Joe has to earn that trust, and Joe has to earn that credibility. So in our region, a firefighter academy is 4 months, sometimes give or take a week. It goes back and forth, but that trust and that credibility have to be earned. And it's going to start to show up pretty quickly. I ran the very first morning of the first day of the Recruit Academy for several years in a row. And I'll tell you what, folks, it did not take long to see which ones had the credibility in there based off of what they were starting to perform. And that was tied back into it's like it's easy to see, hey, which of these people got the integrity, which one of them don't. When something happens and you're asking the question, who did this? And I would know who did it, but the person won't admit to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lack of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got called out on it, and by the way, everybody would, pay for that through push-ups or running around the training area. That recruit who didn't say anything, now people are saying, I'm not going to trust that person. So as the academy goes on, we'll come back to Joe Schmuckatelli, and Joe's demonstrating an academic strength. Joe's keeping up on his physical fitness. Joe is grasping the concepts that are being taught related to fire behavior, hose management, throwing ladders, getting into his bunker gear and SCBA in 60 seconds or less, stepping up. The people who step up at the end of the day and they kick in and they're cleaning the bathrooms and picking up the trash. And that's all adding in and developing that trust and credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the instructor cadre watches who is coming to the top, that cream to the top, and in this our case, it's going to be Joe Schmuckatelli because that's our example, as they start to get put into leadership positions. Then the real test comes with some of the heavy duty physical training shows up, throwing ladders, especially during the academies that are lasting into springtime and when it's getting warm, or they're starting in September when it's still hot. Hey, who's slacking off? Who's out there still performing, building that trust, that credibility? To people with the integrity, it's starting to come naturally for them. Eventually, that academy class is going to get down to the point that where they're responding to mock emergencies in the burn building, but no fire yet. Then the fire gets added. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when everybody is watching what's going to happen here. Who are the ones that are going to perform in these situations right here? So from day one all the way up to graduation, Joe Schmuckatelli came in with integrity, but he did not have credibility and trust as a firefighter.
Mm.
However, on the last day of graduation, Joe has built credibility and trust amongst his class and
Mhm.
amongst the instructor cadre. However, However, he's got to start all over again when he gets assigned to a shift and a company. And for those of you who are not familiar with the fire service, when I refer to the term company, that can either be an engine, which is a pumper, or a ladder truck, a rescue truck. You know, the people assigned to those are referred to as a company.
Mhm.
And so now Joe gets assigned out to an engine company and he's working for either a lieutenant or a captain, and he's going to most likely, that officer is going to get some information coming up from the academy, especially in the smaller departments, how Joe performed. And maybe even people have had an opportunity to go to the training area and watch how they did. That's what I would do when we were on shift and the academy was run at our training area. I'd go down and I'd watch and I'd see, who was performing, who was slacking off and so forth like that. But nevertheless, Joe has got to start all over again and show that he can build up that credibility and trust. How's he working out in the fire station? Is he pitching in? Is he cleaning up? Is he doing the dirty stuff, cleaning the toilets, things like that? You know, is he working? Is he doing his portion of the truck checks, the equipment checks like he's supposed to do? But then it's when the tones hit. How is Joe now going to react? And it's not a drill, it's an actual emergency. Maybe Joe's first call is a cardiac arrest. Maybe it's a SIDS, a little infant. How's Joe going to react there? Perhaps Joe's first call is a commercial structure fire. And this, folks, in the fire service, I know law enforcement, EMS, military falls into the same category, is how does Joe Schmuckatelli perform? And Joe Schmuckatelli performs well. He's building that trust and that credibility.
Yep.
I've worked with others through my 37 years in the fire service, Emily, where it's like seeing them in the recruit academy. I specifically remember one recruit on a live fire exercise who he was afraid to advance the line. He was
Mhm.
afraid to advance the hose line. And it's like, get in here and put the stinking fire out, man. It's hot in here. Ultimately that guy went away. That
Yeah.
was not a profession
Mm-mm.
for him at all. So
Yeah.
that's how, Emily, a man or a woman can have integrity but lack credibility and trust.
Yeah.
But as you said before we started this portion of the segment, it has to be earned.
Absolutely. So, in your book, you wrote integrity, trust, and credibility form a triad of strength. They coexist, grow, and develop in unison. Remove one or the other, and the triad collapses.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So, in the case of Missy Woods that we talked about in the last episode, there was a complete collapse, no integrity, no credibility, and absolutely no trust.
No, I think that best can be summed up as a bunker bomb hit her career.
Yeah. So, as we've touched that you have to earn the trust and credibility, how do you gain trust and credibility?
Well, let's talk about the integrity first. And we hit on that quite a bit in that last episode. And I've talked about that, and you and I have talked about
Previous.
that in other episodes
Mhm.
because for both of us, integrity is so important.
Absolutely.
And it's a character trait. And as I've repeated myself, is if you don't have integrity, everything is, it's going down the toilet. And it's been proven scientifically that character development begins at a very early age and is impacted by our parents, our relatives, the environment that we're in,
Mm.
who we running around with. Way back in, it was probably about 1982, I heard a preacher say, you can't run with a skunk. and smell like a rose.
Yeah.
So the company we
Hmm.
keep.
I think it's important to note that um, when you have integrity, sometimes it means making really hard
Oh
decisions
yes.
and you don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Hmm.
Just a quick example, a friend of mine was sharing with me and his brother's business that they came across like a crossroads where they had to choose integrity versus making like a lot of money. And they ended up choosing integrity so they wouldn't breach their contract. And it ended up turning out for their good. They actually got
Oh,
a
good.
contract in the end, but it's because of their integrity. And I believe, honestly, I believe like it was the Lord blessing them for making that decision. But it doesn't always turn out that way. And sometimes you do have to make those hard decisions,
Hmm.
but
Yep.
at least you can, lay down your head at the end of the night knowing that you have a clear conscience and made the right decision.
Yeah, that kudos to those guys for maintaining integrity and
Hmm.
making that decision. But what Emily
Yeah.
is saying, folks, is when you stand on integrity, you might lose some friends,
Hmm.
and you may also become a target in your employment.
Yeah.
Your boss may be someone who lacks integrity, and they don't like the fact that you do, and you
Yeah.
start to get a target on your back. But just as Emily said, you got to ask yourself the question, are you going to maintain your integrity,
Hmm.
or are you going to cash it in and throw in that integrity towel? And like we've been talking about right here in this episode, no integrity. Hey, there's not going to be any credibility and trust. And for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to share some examples where I have seen people trashed integrity
Yeah.
and their credibility and trust went out. So why won't you share that, Rick? Uh, because a couple of these people are still alive.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point
To protect the
down
innocent
the road, yes, to protect the guilty.
or
Yeah,
guilty.
yeah, not
Yeah,
to
not the
protect the
innocent.
innocent, but but to protect. Yeah, it's just a matter of privacy
Mhm.
in there, and I want to maintain my integrity, and those people, it was nothing criminal that was done. Not if it was something criminal that was done, I would have, you know that would have been resolved a long time ago, but it was a matter of character. It was a character issue. And with the one individual, I really came out of that having a totally different viewpoint of them, because essentially they caved into an issue that they could have taken a stand on, should have taken a stand on,
Yeah.
and they didn't. But again, I want to emphasize it was not anything that was criminal in nature.
Yeah. So let's go back to the triad of strength. We're talking about credibility comes next. Let's dive into credibility.
Yeah, getting back there to our firefighter, Joe Schmuckatelli, and credibility is a quality or power of inspiring in belief. So that example that I gave as Joe Schmuckatelli went through the academy, building up the people's beliefs in what Joe was capable of doing by demonstrating understanding and competence and capability and
Hmm.
efficiency and professionalism, that earns credibility. Also, a thirst for knowledge. I'll tell you, Emily, one of the things that just drives me nuts in anything is people will have a thirst for what is being posted on Facebook.
Hmm.
They'll have a thirst for tuning into any sports event, but they don't have a thirst for improving themselves.
Yeah.
And those type of people are the ones that will ask, well, am I going to get paid to go to that class? Well, am I getting
Yeah.
overtime, for this? Uh, right. That's one of those other things that drives me crazy. Credibility also means that you can't walk around with your nose stuck up in the air like you're God's gift to whatever profession you are in. You got to take a stake and drive it through the ego. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you and I both know some people, and I would venture to say we might even have one individual coming to mind,
Hmm. Hmm.
that we're both thinking about. But people who are arrogant,
Yeah.
they might be professionally competent and capable of performing the job, but hey, people don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
People do not want to be around you. Willingness to serve other people. That builds that credibility and trust. Now, I've
Yeah.
already talked about the station life for Joe Schmuckatelli when he gets out of the recruit academy. Yeah, working hard around the station,
Hmm.
and performing well. That is how it's our actions, people. It's our behavior that builds that credibility and trust. If you say that you can perform a particular task, then you better be able to do it.
Yeah. What was it? What was it that our pastor said in one sermon? Walk,
Yeah,
let your talk walk.
yeah. I always
I
get
get
that. I
super
always,
tongue
so
tied,
yeah, I
but
get tongue tied on that one
um,
too. Um,
yeah,
your walk talks more
yeah,
than your talk talks.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll
yeah,
stop there because
yeah. But yeah,
it goes on further. But I
yeah,
get tongue
yeah.
tied.
I know.
But it's
I get,
basically, yeah.
yeah. I get tongue tied
Mm-hmm.
as well with that. And I just thought of another example of a lack of credibility, and I've seen it in the fire service where you get somebody who just came out of a recruit academy, or they've been on the job for a year or a year and a
Hmm.
half, and they act and they talk like they're a 30-year veteran, that
Yeah.
they've seen it all. And it's like, come on. When I was stationed down at Lowry Air Force Base in the fire department, we had an individual like that, was always bragging about everything that he did. And he had a nickname. His nickname was Fat Jack. And one of the other firemen, when the old Fat Jack was running his mouth one night about everything he did, well, the other end of the day room, Charlie spoke up and says, Fat Jack, the way that I calculate it, you ought to be 110 years old for everything that you're saying that you did.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've talked about integrity and credibility.
Hmm.
So then comes trust.
Trust. So we can take integrity and credibility and you put it in the blender and out comes
Yeah.
trust. Uh, so thereby that completes the third leg of the triad of strength.
That's right. So, hey, folks, what about you? We've asked this question not only in the last episode, but
Hmm.
others, is do you have integrity?
Yeah. Do you have credibility?
And do you have trust?
So if the answer is yes to all three of those, then congratulations, you have the triad of strength.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Fireworks going off. Yeah. If the answer is no, then it's time for you. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And if the answer is no, then it's time for you to assess your life and determine what you need to do to correct it.
Yeah.
Emily, is there anything else as we wrap up this episode? Number 28, a triad of strength.
No, I think that covers it for
Nope.
now.
Okie dokie. Okay, folks, listen, if you found this episode to be useful, please like, subscribe, share it. Also, you can visit my website, fireofficerleadershipacademy.com. The link is in the show notes below to
Yeah.
see the services that I have to offer. You can also find the link to my weekly blog. It gets posted on my website on Monday mornings at 0500 Mountain Time. And I post it up on LinkedIn on Wednesday mornings at 0500 Mountain Time as well. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.